ARTEMIS, welcome to the moon, the bestseller bus of the Martian, anywhere, ARTEMIS. After that special delivery, I did a few more mundane pickup and drop-offs, mostly items from the port to home addresses. But I did never contract to move a bunch of boxes from a residence back to the port. I love helping people move. They usually tip well. That day's move was pretty modest, a young couple relocating back to us. The woman was pregnant. You can't gestate a baby in lunar gravity. It leads to birth defect. And you can't raise a baby here. Anyway, it's terrible for bone and muscle development. When I moved here, I was 6 years old. It was the minimum age for residency back then. Since then, they've bumped it up to 12. Should I be worried? I was just moving on to the next pickup and my gizmo screeched at me. Not the ring of the phone call, not the bleep of the message, but scream of an alarm. I fumbled it out of my pocket. Fire, CU12 3270, lockdown enacted. All nearby volunteer personnel to respond. Shit, I said. I threw trigger into reverse and backed up until I found a patch a hallway wide enough for a U-turn. Now facing the right way, I sped to the ramps. Judge Vasara responding. I said to my gizmo. Current location, Conrad R4. The Central Safety Computer noticed my report and popped up a map of Conrad. I was one of many dots on that map, all covering one CU12 3270. ARTEMIS doesn't have a fire department. We have volunteers. But smoke and fire are so deeply here, the volunteers have to know how to breathe with air tanks. So all EVA master and EVA trainee are automatically volunteers. Yes, there's an irony there. The fire was on Conrad of 12, 8th floor above me. I screeched along the lamps up and up to CU12, then sped along the corridor toward the third ring. From there, I had to find the lot, and that was approximately 70 degrees from true north. I didn't take long. A crowd of EVA masters had already converged. A red light flashed over the thick door to the address. The sign above read, Queensland Glass Factory. Bob was one cent. As the ranking guide member present, the fire was his responsibility. He gave me a quick nod to acknowledge my presence. Okay, listen up, he said. You had a full-fledged fire inside the glass factory, which has burned off all the available oxygen in the room. There are 14 people inside. All of them made it to their air shelter in time. There are no injuries, and the shelter is working properly. He stood in front of the door. He can't just wait for the room to cool like we normally would. This factory creates glass by reacting silicon with oxygen, so they have large tanks of compressed oxygen in there. If those tanks burst, the room will contain explosion, but the people inside will have no chance. And if we let flash oxygen in, the whole thing will blow. He shooed us away from the doorway to make an empty area. We need a tent right here, sealed to the wall around the doorway. We need an inflatable accordion tunnel inside the tent. We need 4 rescue workers. The fire brigade, well trained, got on it immediately. They built a cube skeleton out of hollow pipes. Then they taped plastic the wall around the fireproof door, draped it over the skeleton, and taped the edges together. They left the layer flap open. They hoisted an accordion tunnel into the tent. This was no small task. Unlike the makeshift tent, inflatable tunnels were made to hold pressure. They are thick and heavy, designed to rescue people from air scattered when there's a complete vacuum outside. A bit of an overkill in this scenario, but it's the equipment we had. The tent wasn't very large, and the tunnel occupied most of the space inside. So Bob pointed to the four smallest responders, Sarah, George, Aaron, and Mercury. Get in. The four of us stepped forward. The others put air tanks on our backs, breather masks on their faces, and goggles over our eyes. One by one, we tested our gear and gave a thumbs up. We crowded into the tent. It was a tight fit. Bob stood a metal cylinder just inside. The air setter is along the west wall, a total of 14 people inside. Copy 14, said Sarah, a full license EVA master with the most tenure out of the four of us. She was the insertion team's leader. The other fire brigade voluntarily taped the tent flap closed except for one corner, which they left slightly open. Sarah cranked the valve of the cylinder and it sprayed a fog of carbon dioxide into the tent. It's a sloppy process, displacing oxygen, but it didn't need to expel every last atom. We just needed to get the percent as low as possible. After a minute, she cranked the valve shut again, and the people outside sealed the last corner of the tent. She felt the door hot, she said. We were about to open the door into a room just waiting to blow up. We weren't going to add oxygen, but it was still unnerving. She keyed the fire unlock code into the door panel. Yes, a code. Once a fireproof room's alarms go up, the doors and the band seal immediately. The people inside can't get out. They have to get into an air shelter or die. Seem harsh? Well, it's not. A fire spreading in town would be far worse than a few people dying in a sealed room. ARTEMIS does not fuck around with fire safety. At Sarah's command, the door clicked open and heat from inside filled our tent. I immediately broke into a sweat. Jesus, said Aaron. The factory was thick with smoke. Some corners glowed red with heat. If there had been any oxygen to spare, they would be certainly been aflame. Along the far wall, I could just make out the shape of the industrial air shelter. Sarah wasted no time. Judge, you are with me up front. Aaron and Mercury, stay here and hold the back of the inflatable. I joined Sarah. She grabbed one side of the tunnel from opening and I grabbed the other. Aaron and Mercury did the same with the back help. Sarah walked forward. I kept pace, and the accordion-style tunnel expanded along behind us with Aaron and Mercury holding the rail steady. Reacting silicon and oxygen creates a lot of heat. When's the fireproof room? Why not just melt sand like those do on us? Because we don't have sand on the moon, at least not enough to be useful. But we do have plenty of silicon and oxygen, which are byproduct of the aluminum industry. So we can make as much glass as we want. We just have to make it the hard way. The primary reaction clamber chute just ahead of us. We'd have to get the tunnel around it to reach the trapped workers. Probably a hot spot, I said. Sarah nodded and led us around in a wide arc. We didn't want to melt a hole in our rescue tunnel. We reached the shelter hatch and I knocked on the small round window. A face appeared, a man with watering eye and ashy-covered face, most likely the foreman who would have entered the shelter last. He gave me a thumbs up and I returned the gesture. Sarah and I stepped into the tunnel, then climbed the hoop around the shelter's hatch. That was easy, at least as exactly what the tunnel was designed for. Still at the tent, Aaron and Mary pressed their end of the tunnel against the plastic and taped it in place. We'd create an escape route for the workers, but it's full of unbraceable air from the room. Ready to blow it out? Sarah yelled. Sealed and ready, Aaron called back. The fog outside cut a slit in the plastic. Smoke from the tunnel leaked into the hallway from the bright. Already had fans and filters ready to minimize its spread. Tens often, blow it out, Aaron yelled. Sarah and I exchanged a glance of comfort. We were both ready. Together, we took a deep breath and popped the bent release on our air tank. The escaping gas pushed the smoke along with it, down the tunnel and out the hallway. Soon the tunnel had breathable air inside. Tornado of 12 would have a sooty smell for days. We both coughed when we tried the air, but it wasn't too bad. It didn't have to be pleasant. It just had to be non-toxic. Satisfied that it wouldn't kill the workers, Sarah cranked the handle to the air shelter hatch. To their credit, the workers filed out in a fast control line. My respect for Queensland Glass went up a notch. They kept their employer well trained for emergency. 1, 2, 3. Sarah counted off each person as they passed. I kept my own count on confirm. Once she reached 14, I called her. 14. Confirmed. She looked into the shelter. Empty shelter. I did the same. Empty shelter. Confirmed. I followed the coughing, choking workers down the tunnel to safety. Good work, said Bob. Other volunteers were already fitting oxygen masks on the signed employees. Charge. We have 3 moderately wounded, second-degree burns. Give them a ride to Doc Russell. The rest of you, above that tent and tunnel into the room and reseal the fire door. For the second time that day, Trigger and I served as an ambulance. In the end, the oxygen tank didn't blow up. Still, Queensland Glass was destroyed. A shame. They'd already been solid on fire safety. Never been had a single infraction. Bad luck, I guess. Now, they'd have to rebuild from scratch. Still, their well-maintained air shelter and regular fire drills have saved a lot of lives. Factories can be rebuilt. People can't. It was a win.